Keshav, great having you. Thanks for taking the time out. I hope all is well. Neeraj here, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me, Neeraj.
Would love to understand, Keshav, you must be looking at what happens to inventory and thereby the impact on demand for products that you and your peer sets and some of the other companies manufacture as well. What's your thesis around this?
Well, firstly, let me say I completely agree with what you were saying. In the past year and a half has been a little difficult because inventory in real estate had started to sell, but it wasn't being handed over. As you know, our products come into use when we go from a house to a home. But now we are seeing traction on the ground. Now, as those units near completion, the demand traction on the ground is better. And I think we are in for a relatively strong year.
Okay, so Keshav, what are the sound bites like? I mean, how is the demand scenario like? There is so much of talk around how urban versus rural is. Maybe it doesn't impact your company, maybe it does. Would love to understand what is the situation on the ground and how do you foresee it to be when you're saying that it promises to be a good year?
So, our segmental guidance has been that for plywood, we are going to grow at 10% plus, for laminates, 20% plus, and for MDF, 40% plus. For particle board, given the new capacity is going to come into play by Q4, we are looking at 25% plus. So I think the new capacities that we have added have actually come on board at absolutely the right time. As this lift-off takes place both in urban and rural centers pan-India, we are likely to get the benefit of the new MDF and laminate capacity. And in plywood, as you know, we have been doing reasonably well. This year, we're going to do better.
Keshav, hi, good morning. Tamanna here. The pain point
Good morning.
Good morning. The pain point of higher input costs, which you couldn't, really pass on. Does that pain point persist through FY25? And, we see that in some of your guidance, at least as far as laminates are concerned. You see that continuing?
So as far as, laminates and plywood are concerned, I would say that our ability to pass on these cost increases in the form of price increases is much higher. In laminates, actually, the reason for the lower guidance is that we are coming on stream with our new capacity in Andhra Pradesh. And as you know, the new capacity will take a little bit of time to ramp up. In plywood, we are fairly steady with our guidance of 12 to 14%. In MDF and particle board, the ability to pass on this cost increase is limited by imports and by the competitive intensity in the market. So I think at least for the first half of the year, the margin guidance will remain at 15%. Of course, the attempt will be to increase it towards the second half. But for the entire year, guidance at the moment is 15% for both MDF and particle board.
Right. Just talking a bit about MDF specifically, because that's a big market. What's the outlook there? Do you see that growing, more imports coming in?
I think MDF is already growing at 20% CAGR, and it has been doing this for the past few years. As the middle income segment grows and the demand for affordable furniture keeps increasing, I think the Prime Minister has also announced new schemes towards affordable housing. Going forward, MDF is likely to continue growing at the same pace or faster. For us, we have doubled our capacity as of this quarter, as of the end of last quarter. And I think we are going to see the benefit of that this quarter onwards itself. Of course, for the year, we have an ambitious growth target of 40% plus, but I'm confident we'll be able to achieve that.
Keshav, new capacities on stream is one. What about current capacity utilizations? Do you reckon that better capacity utilizations might not just help in growth, but also in the margins and the ratios as well?
Absolutely. I think, higher capacity utilizations are going to help us. The new capacities will take time to turn profitable. As you know, any new capacity will not turn profitable from day one. But in the existing capacities, the only way that we are being able to maintain or achieve the margin guidance that we have given is by virtue of this increase in capacity utilization. If we weren't able to grow our market share, I think the margins could have been even lower. But thankfully, due to this increase in both sales and in market share, we should be doing relatively okay.
So I'm looking for a number, Keshav. You've given me segmental numbers and MDF, etc. look very impressive. But overall, based on what you've done for FY24 in terms of revenues and profitability, Relative to that, let's say 4,000 odd crores on revenues, right, and PAT of about 325 crores, where do you reach in FY25 as an entity, not segmentally?
I think overall profit will be a shade lower, like I've said. But in terms of total revenue, we'll definitely be at a 20% plus growth.
20% plus growth with a, and the other question is, what about pricing? And correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe in the past we've spoken about how some of the imports on specific pockets had also hit the industry, if I'm not wrong. Is that pressure out of the way, Keshav?
No, you're absolutely correct. For MDF and particle board, imports do play a role. And we were likely to see BIS being implemented from February of this year, which would have helped a lot because the imported material is of a lower quality than domestic material. That is why it is price competitive. However, BIS has been delayed till February of next year. From February onwards, I think the import pressure is likely to be much, much lower. But at the moment, there is definitely import pressure, which only affects, again, the MDF and particle board segment.
What are the biggest sort of segments that you're looking at for FY25 and the biggest markets, Keshav? Because at the start of the conversation, you made a very interesting point that all of that inventory which is being sold now nears completion. So people actually start the activity of furnishing their homes and then buying your products. Where are you seeing the largest growth pockets?
So to be honest, we're seeing growth pockets all across. As you can see, in all our products, we have guided for reasonable growth. In MDF, we are seeing a much larger share of the southern market because our new capacity has come on stream in Andhra Pradesh. So as you know, the older capacity is in Hoshiarpur, which is far north. So our ability to service the south was limited in the case of MDF. So now we are a pan-India player in MDF, which is going to help us gain a lot of market share in the south. Other than that, we are looking at good growth both domestically as well as in exports.
And in terms of consumer tastes or demand, or buyer tastes and demand, are you seeing the focus on MDF and laminates and some of these products increasing by and by? That helps ease off the fact that timber costs are going up?
I think that every product is doing relatively well in that particular segment. MDF is growing faster for the single reason that it's a cheaper product, it's a cheaper alternate to plywood. And now there is capacity available in the market. Perhaps earlier we were limited by capacity. With regards to laminates, definitely laminates has been doing well. Plywood will also grow reasonably well. In plywood, I am fairly confident that the organized sector is going to do much better because the unorganized is grappling far more with the cost increase than we are. So overall, I would say all segments are likely to do well, but you're absolutely correct. MDF will grow faster because the CAGR of MDF has been 20% plus, and it is likely to continue in the same way.
Are you seeing demand for ply then coming down and prices of ply going up over the next financial year?
The way I would look at it, plywood has to be segregated. It can't be looked as one market because there's an organized market and an unorganized market. Now, the reason that we are not successful in the unorganized play is because it is much cheaper quality, inferior plywood. People say that, MR plywood is being used and portrayed as PF plywood. So the customer is actually being conned. Now, that is a game that, of course, Century Ply cannot play. That part of the market is being cannibalized rapidly by MDF. But the segment at which we play in, the high quality PF segment, there the market is growing and we are growing within the market itself. So I think we are gaining higher market share and there's an increase in the market. So both of those bode well.
All right. Thank you, Keshav, for your take on how you see FY25 panning out. Executive Director at Century Plyboards talking about how you might see some pain point through some of the next year, but MDF, laminates and all these segments continue to grow and they foresee growth at a fast clip.